friend's slag affectionately. It's mean, but then I sort of realised, like, it's cruel, actually. And would a gay person say to me, "You're hurting my feelings"? Would they say that? Because I know that I've been in situations where some people make rape jokes all the time. They just fucking rape you. Shut up, I'm going to rape you. And it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't detest it. I don't know if I detest it. I don't really like it. But the point is, I feel too uncomfortable to ask people to stop because I feel like I might be kicked out of the boys' treehouse if I express how I feel about certain things. And for that reason, I stopped calling people, "You massive gay, you're such a fag," because of the uncomfortable situation I feel myself in. And I think that this has got awful, but as a kind of white, middle-class male, Western male, there aren't that many things that you're subjected to that put you in that position. And I know that's such a horrible blanket generalization, and there are some
No, you're right. You are so incredibly right.
I don't mean to sound like I'm such a minority, I'm so hard done by, but I mean, actually, I can't go into it. It's going to be too long.
Unfortunately, we need to get to the part where we figure out exactly what we think can be done and some sites.
I kind of had a rhetorical question to like throw at the end of that we don't have to discuss or answer.
Go ahead.
It's like the thing like we were talking about, people would use the word gay as like a derogatory statement. And I was raised somewhere where people did this a lot. And so I remember one time someone telling me it was very offensive, and I was like, oh, it's just what people say. Like, I didn't realize that was offensive. So the rhetorical question here is, just because people say it, if somebody tells you that it's offensive, is the answer like, oh, well, it's just what people say? Is that appropriate? Because, I mean, like, if it offends somebody, I feel like that should be important. And I don't know that people consider it to be important.
Honestly, most of the time that should just be enough. You know,
I know it's rhetorical.
That's sound bounds.
Okay, I'd like to say one thing and then move to Elizabeth, who's going to tell us some sites we can go to and some ways that we can hopefully do our part to stop this from happening. I'd like to say, Victoria, that every time I've played a game, most MMOs or something, I've been in a guild, and I've been lucky enough that because I think the guild or the situations I've been in, when somebody does say something, or if I say, like, hey, no, stop, I don't like that, stop, I've had guys stand up and say, hey, that's not appropriate, and defend me. And I think there are lots of guys out there in the gaming community that do their part to stand up and say, hey, that isn't acceptable, or you shouldn't say that, or, knock it off. And I don't mean for us to generalize and say that all guys are, trolling hags, because there are plenty of guys out there that are, and even just the word manning up is really horrible to say, but lots of guys out there that are just really treating their fellow women gamers well, and so it's not all bad, but to address the problems that we do have, let's talk to Elizabeth and see what she's learned about things we can do.
Okay, so I'm a writer, and my background is in advertising, so of course my brain is going to go, hey, let's solve this from a PR perspective. And there, I think, is some validity to that. I mean, other people will bring their skills to the table and say, well, there's a way to fix it, this way or that way or whatever. But in looking at this, the wonderful thing about social media and the internet is that it democratizes whose voices get heard. Everybody gets a voice. It doesn't matter. The internet doesn't care what you look like or what sex you are. So, with that in mind, my first instinct is to tell all the ladies out there who are having these issues to, you can keep logging the complaints and like offensive comments on, say, fatuglyerslutty.com, which catalogs all of the Xbox Live harassment. But I don't know that that's really going to make a difference. With the vitriol that is being spewed from these places and from certain individuals, it really makes more sense to me to mock them mercilessly via the internet and with the tools that we have, such as making online videos or memes, because everybody loves a good joke. And for these individuals, generally speaking, hitting them where it hurts is the pride. Make fun of them, get people laughing at them, and disseminate it across the internet, and you'll get your point across. And perhaps even get the attention of some of these gaming companies that maybe they should reconsider having things like booth babes at these conferences. There's also a wonderful website, gamersagainstbigotry.org, which, well, they were previously gaining pledges, but just a few days ago, their site was hacked and all of their pledges were removed, all of their signatures. So right now they have an Indiegogo fundraising site, which is pretty cool.
3 hours left,
and
I
if you
think.
go to, oh, sorry?
3 hours left. I think you can still contribute to the Kickstarter if you want at Indiegogo for 3 hours.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. And then the two other things that I'd say are that just by definition, the guys who have these issues aren't really going to care or respect our views because we're women. We have tits, therefore we don't count, right? So with that in mind, we do need good men who recognize these problems, who, you know, may not want to speak on behalf of women. It's still up to them to stand up and say, hey, that's over the line, dude. That's not cool. Back off. And I think my last point here would be to refer to Jane McGonigal's Reality is Broken, which calls on games as ways to solve the world's problems for humanity, or at least, you know, achieve a better understanding of that. And I think that that's the perfect medium to get across this message. So, for example, there was a video game designer not too long ago who created a game about the transgender experience, which I had no knowledge of previously. And then I played this game, and it was fantastic, and I learned a lot. So make games, make videos, make memes, use the media at our disposal to get across our message.
What do you think about some people's suggestion that, specifically toward Xbox Live, you either don't allow people to have chat when they initially join and they have to earn it through good behavior, or you have it so that people have to, they lose any anonymity and gamer tags and have to sign in with their own name attached to their account. What do you guys think of those two options? Do you think that would stop the trolling, or you think that's just kind of naive?
I have a quick answer, so I'm going to jump in real quick. I do think that having your name, your actual name, would stop trolling. But as someone who is all about privacy, people's personal privacy, I don't agree with being forced to use your own name. I think that people should have the right to be safe if that's what they want to do.
I'd say that to your point, Krista, I do agree. Although if people are habitual offenders, it could be some kind of point system where they lose the right to their privacy if they continually harass people, possibly.
Why not a situation like both? Why not an opt-in where I can say I'm a real gamer tag versus a standard gamer tag or anonymous gamer tag, and I can opt in to only find people who have their real name as their gamer tag. I mean, the same thing as Amazon reviews. I only want to read reviews from people who actually have their name and are verified. Facebook, I only friend people who are on Facebook who are legitimate human beings who I know, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, Tumblr gives you that, or not Tumblr, well, Tumblr too, but, you know, Twitter gives you that anonymity and all the freedom you ever could want. And then Facebook gives you the option to be a real human being and a real boy and come in and say, no, I stand by what I say. I mean, why not a system like that where, you know, if Xbox Live had 2 channels where you could, you know, do both, or anonymous or, you know, real gamer tags only, and that gives me some accountability, some sort of, it's demonstrated time and again that people who have their real face and real name behave better. Yes. You know, you take anonymity away and you take away the mask, and people quit robbing banks as much. You know?
As long as it's a choice, though, we shouldn't give up one right for another.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. It should definitely be a choice, and I like Joe's idea where you can opt in, because then I can see it being a real quick step to in groups like the Frag Dolls and other kind of established groups saying we use our real names, and I can see other people copying it and it catching on quite quickly. It's a very good idea, as long as it's not forced, because I know some people just don't want to go there. They don't want to make friends online. I mean, they just want to play. They don't want to talk. They don't want to be involved. And if I didn't want to use my real name, I wouldn't want to be forced to. But if there was an incentive like that, I think it would be a really good option. Definitely something to suggest.
Okay, we're getting ready to close here, so I'm going to give you all a chance to make any final remarks you have to say before that. So let's see. How about Krista? Anything you want to say before we close?
Oh, goodness. No, I think maybe I covered the things.
Okay. Very good.
Was not prepared.
No, just anything. If you anything you were pondering the whole time and then you just didn't get a chance to say it, now is your chance.
I just think that people should feel like they can reach out to other people. Like, I don't know, if anybody is dealing, this might sound really dumb, like if you're dealing with any of the stuff that we talked about, like my username is kitten, and that is universal, and you can find me and I will listen. And yeah, I feel like people should feel like they can talk to other people. If you're on the internet, you have no one to talk to, you can come talk to me.
Elizabeth, how about you?
I was just going to say that to the points about objectification earlier, media, which is something I'm in and study, it does condition people from the time they're very young, without even thinking about it, to view women as objects and not as people, as types, and not as individuals. And I think it's important that we begin to change that with our generation, just at least in the way that we act and in the way that we think and in the language that we use. I think that would be key. Also, if you want to find me online, you can use my Twitter handle, which is my real name, Elizabeth Sang.
Excellent. Krista, I'm going to give you a chance here, even though we're running late. She just set it up perfectly, and I have to. Krista's been researching this article that I linked to her recently, which was a new science study that came out about objectification, and specifically women, and she spent all this time researching. So she wants to take 5 minutes and just tell about the article. Go for it.
Yeah, so I have a pretty short version of what it is, and I don't know how we're doing links, but I'm assuming that people will be able to follow it.
Yeah.
It's basically a study, a scientific study that was done on the perceptions of men and women and their body parts. Basically, it was research published in the European Journal of Social Psychology, where participants were given images of sexual body parts of men and women, and basically what they showed was that women's body parts were more easily recognized in isolation. So if you were to show a woman's waist, people would be like, oh, that's the waist of a woman. But if you were to show, a guy's abs, the participants wouldn't recognize that. They saw men globally, whereas they would see women locally, and they would actually recognize that better. And something that I think is really interesting is that both men and women recognize the images this way. It wasn't that men were like, oh, that's a lady's boobs. It was everybody. Both participants, male and female, saw women that way. So women, I don't know, that kind of seems like women are objectifying women or are being trained to do that just as much as men are, and it's just kind of it's a cool study.
It's a media conditioning thing.
And then they also did a thing where they altered the images too, and touch them up the way that we do in media and things like that. And I didn't really get into that as much, but that's in the article too.
Okay, I thought it was interesting, and it had some suggestions and there are ways to change your brain's thinking in that direction, and to have it not do that, which I thought was also kind of neat. They didn't specify exactly how you're supposed to retrain your brain, but maybe people will research. It's possible. Okay, Joe, final thoughts as we close here?
I'm going to try and stay short. I do talks around the nation and the world now, actually. It's kind of cool, on Akira. It's a big passion of mine. I love, sharing the art from Akira and talking about it. And I noticed that the crowd is so much larger as years go by, and there's so many kids, young kids, boys and girls who are in the audience. And one thing I always point out is that there's this new generation, 2 generations old actually, of people like us having children. And they're raising their kids to understand that, hey man, all this stuff I got beat up for as a kid is okay now. Not only that, it's popular, it's awesome, go love it. You want to make art for a living? You can make art for a living. And that, I think, is really the key and the answer to all of this. It's just simple. Raise the child that you want to see exist in the world. Behave the way you'd like to see other people behave, and things will shift. I mean, in society right now, kids are